Hello, welcome to The Honest Wargamer. I'm your host, Rob, and this video, if you're into Age of Sigmar 4 or you're excited about playing Age of Sigmar 4, is going to be very, very interesting, and hopefully you're going to really like these changes. Now, I'm going to prefix this with I think the changes that we're going to look at in battle plans and missions and terrain maps are all really good and geared towards new people trying to either get into Age of Sigmar or people returning to Age of Sigmar, which is definitely seems to be the theme of the edition. I might make another video about how this all seems so far, but right now, if you're any of those people, I feel like this is really geared towards you, and if you are one of those people, please do leave comments below because I want to know how these things make you feel. I obviously am streaming on Twitch, and many of these people have been playing lots of games, or they play lots, and so their opinions or their place in the game is slightly different to your place in the game. And welcome to Age of Sigmar. Nice to have you. And it'd be lovely to know what you think about it. So let's go and have a look at what we're seeing here. So it goes on to very simply describe what battle plans, battle packs, and also GHBs are. It's written so simply, in fact, that I feel like I can't cover this article without kind of mirroring its expression and starting from the ground up. When you play a game of Age of Sigmar, normally you'll play what we call a pickup game or a pug, which would be 2,000 points. If you're playing an event, it's almost always also 2,000 points. Sure, there are spearhead games, maybe games at lower points values, and those are all things that we can cover in other videos. But normally you play the most up-to-date version of Age of Sigmar if you're playing at your local club or you're playing at an event, which is normally 2,000 points using the General's Handbook, the current General's Handbook, which is normally a separate thing different from the core rulebook. So the core rulebook will have the rules, General's Handbook will have the missions, and any kind of special seasonal rules that you'll add on at top. So it's just effectively a season. I'm sure you've seen that from other computer games. And then at the end of a season, it all changes up. That's what a General's Handbook is, so it gives you maps and it gives you missions. That's what they are. Super simple. People who know this are like, Rob, I know this. And I'm like, you know this, but some people might be new, so let's go through it. Okay. In the core game, in the core rules, there are some missions, and those are pretty cool, and they've got these things called twists. And we will look at those maybe when they come out in the core rules. I don't think we need to look over these now. The only thing I'll say is that it's really good that in the core rulebook there are a set of missions that people can play, and it does say that the First Blood battle pack, which, looking at this here, has got 5 objectives, has got the ability to just play for 4 rounds, which is a quicker, shorter game, which is great for new people and people learning, and also it's very simple and it's very well thought out. They've designed a mission for people to enter into the game, and that's great because loads of new people might be playing Age of Sigmar for the first time, so giving those people the tools to very quickly cycle through a bunch of games and get those ideas and those mechanics under their, in their brain and under their feet is good. So that's a real positive. For me personally, this isn't something I'm going to cover in detail until all of them are out, and then I'll try and make a much more easier to understand explainer video where we'll go through them. Maybe I'll even play a couple and we'll film it and we'll play through for people so they can understand what's going on, which is cool. And I'll include that with loads of other videos I plan to make. So we're going to move on to the General's Handbook. And the General's Handbook, uniquely, is going to be included in the launch box. This is something new for Age of Sigmar 4 that they haven't done in previous Age of Sigmars, and is really good. In fact, going all the way back to the beginning of Age of Sigmar didn't originally start with having General's Handbook, and this was something that came out later into the edition, about a year and a half after Age of Sigmar was first launched. And ever since then, we've had General's Handbooks pretty much every year. At one point in Age of Sigmar 3, they went to 6-month General's Handbooks, but then they stopped doing that because they felt like that was too quick, and so they went back to being 1. And I think this is another 1 every year, sorry. I think this is another important point to just remind everyone that Age of Sigmar has always been a really innovative game, for both lore and also mechanics, ever since its inception at the beginning. And some of those innovations have been mistakes, like having a game with no points, and some of those innovations, like having objectives for everything to battle over, have been incredibly positive, even if they were taken from other games like War Machine. The reason I bring this up is because it feels like what we're about to read through feels like what they've done is they've created a tutorial version of Age of Sigmar for Age of Sigmar 4. It's a game that is going to hold your hand through the mechanics and might even make it so that you don't always lose on the first turn, or don't sometimes lose on the first turn, and that thing is a thing of the past, which is a real positive, because then that tutorial is going to constantly hold your hand as you get to the end, which is, again, like I say, really great for new players. Okay, we'll start at the top here. Match play tournaments use the framework presented in the General's Handbook. It's a great way of standardizing events worldwide. That is true as well. I also do the Age of Sigmar Stat Center, me and my friend Rob, where we look at event results from around the world and we collate those into stats, and we do that every single Monday. One of the bonuses of the General's Handbook and these other things is that that show pretty much consistently, if there's an event in Vietnam, or there's an event in Mexico, or an event in Canada or France, they're all using exactly the same rule set at the same time, so it gives you some really good context. Last weekend, as an example, there were 9 different countries where everyone was playing the same missions and the same thing. That's great. So that standardization is excellent. It also provides tactical challenges in the form of season rules, which may alter how you approach building a list, strategic decisions on the table. The first of these books for the new edition is General's Handbook, and it will feature 12 battle plans plucked from the past 8 years of competitive play and reimagined for the new edition. As voted for by Warhammer Studio playtesters and tournament organisers, a thrilling trip down memory lane for veterans, a guarantee of robust players for new players. Now, some, I think, would argue that copy and pasting your old work into a new game is a bit yikesy. I don't really know how everyone feels about that. Like, would you have liked to see them design whole new things? I'm not sure. You do have to remember that one of the major changes to Age of Sigmar 4 compared to the other 3 editions is that the objective size has changed. It goes from 6 inches from the center of an objective to a 40mm objective and everything from 3 inches, which is a big change. But either way, I'm someone who, in other videos, have talked about some of my favourite battle plans and like to see them return. So I'm excited to see which 12 they've chosen. Shout out to all my homies who love twists and turns. It could return. That would be the best. So we're going to get 12 battle plans. 12 battle plans is a lot as well, especially when a game is like 3 hours. You know, you can't play all of those over the course of a weekend. An event's normally 5 rounds. So that it would take you at least 3 events to play through all of them, right? Okay. Each game in this battle pack runs for 5 rounds, and each battle plan explains the scoring rules and any twists that might be involved. Border War was a firm favourite from 2016 and is back and gives us a glimpse of how scoring works in the new General's Handbook. So, top headline for everyone very quickly. In Age of Sigmar 3, you would score 1 point for holding your objective, another point for holding 2 objectives, and 1 point for holding more than your opponent. You score 2 points for a battle tactic. In this, they've upped the points for pretty much everything. In this, you score 4 victory points for doing a battle tactic, and there's also one more battle plan that they've shown off, the Vice, which we'll talk about in a minute, and that has also increased to 4 as well. So I think it's fair to say, and they go on to talk about scoring in a bit, so we'll reevaluate that then, but 4 points for a battle tactic, which is kind of nice, and also maybe the math is quite interesting on that. Again, we'll discuss that in another video. Victory points scored by each player from... So now the twist for this is that there are, as you can see, 4 objectives on the board. If you're the defender, your home objective is worth 1 point. The 2 other objectives are worth 2 points, the ones in the middle. But if you're able to hold your opponent's objective, this is worth 5. This is great, and I love the return of this battle plan. I actually have always said that this is the best beginner battle plan that you can ever play with anyone, because it makes them understand risk versus reward. Do I want to send all my forces to go and attack their territory and score 5 points? Yeah, that's great, but you leave your home territory very open to attack. That's really nice. It's a really simple way of explaining something. So this is one of my favourite battle plans. However, unlike the original version in 2016, there is a twist in that victory points scored by each player from the controlling objectives are capped to a maximum of 6. So you can never, what we call, snowball or gain a massive advantage. I can't have a very clever plan that I enact to grab your opponent's territory and score 5 victory points while also holding the others, because it's capped at 6. Similarly, I can't have taken advantage of a mistake that you've made and grabbed your home objective either, because it's capped. And therefore, the strength of this battle plan has kind of been limited by the twist. But this is an indication of what we're going to see continuously, in my opinion, through Age of Sigmar 4, now based on the information from today, in that it does some level of hand-holding. A good point brought up in the chat as we were kind of deep diving this discussion was one of the bonuses here is that you can't have your opponent what we call an alpha strike. So they just run over and they just murder a load of your stuff and immediately gain a massive advantage, because this means that you're going to become the underdog. You add 1 to hit rolls for units in the underdog's army if they're charged this turn and they are contesting the objective wholly within the enemy territory. Don't forget, you're the underdog if you are below victory points versus your opponent. So beginning of a battle round, you're like, I am the underdog, which means you gain an extra command point, and also you get the ability to do this underdog ability here. Also, in addition, we've discussed already the priority roll. I've done that in another video. And if you potentially could get double turned, your opponent isn't going to be able to score a battle tactic if they decide to do the double turn. Therefore, they will immediately lose out on 4 points, which is a battle tactic, which is a lot of the percentage of the total score. And in addition, that double turn isn't going to benefit them in being able to make them score a lot more primary points because they're soft capped at 6. So effectively, it's kind of like the bumpers when you go bowling. Everything is geared towards making it so that the game is very much closer, independent of dice rolls or skill in that situation. So the game flows much, and this is really helpful in a game where the skill disparity, like someone has a very good level of skill expression, someone has a very low level of skill expression. That helps the person with a low skill expression more, and it also makes the person with a high skill expression have to work harder to win their games. So that kind of, I guess, is a balancing mechanic in both. In a game where both players have a similar skill expression, I'm not actually sure how this is going to work, and it's just going to require us to get on the table and play it, which will be fun. Okay. So the underdog earns a little bit more bite when they attempt to contest the enemy's home objective, and it caps the scoring from objectives at 6 per turn. Battle tactics score 4 victory points on every battle plan. This new scoring split makes battle tactics very important, which is interesting. Battle tactics Age of Sigmar 3 have been generally one of the things most people want to see a aggressive rework, mainly because they feel like you're not doing a battle. People really want a battle tactic to be about like killing a thing or raising an objective or something that feels like you're doing some sort of fantasy battle versus casting a spell or getting in and out of a boat. Okay. This is scoring for each battle plan in the General's Handbook. Your victory points each round will add up to a maximum of 10. So for a total, a maximum of 50 points per battle. This makes scoring easy for event organisers to keep track of. This is kind of interesting as well. This has added like more kind of room for how many points you can score in a game, which is good because Age of Sigmar 3 right now, a lot of the scoring is very truncated. It's very squashed. Normally, someone will score like 26 points on a battle plan and the other person will score 22. Mainly because towards the end of Age of Sigmar 3, they gave out a lot of these things that we call pity points or battle tactics that are so easy to achieve that effectively they're always scoring 5 battle tactics, so it's just about holding the primary. Again, this is a really nice hand-holding device for making you have like an almost enjoyable game where the result is almost independent of what you do in the game, which is honestly good for new players and people looking for a fun tabletop experience that's just a fun game to play. The device from 2021 shows a variation how scoring reaches that fixed 10 per round as its objectives converge on the center. So if anyone has played PUBG or any of those other games, this is where the objectives cycle in from the beginning. This is actually super annoying to play on the tabletop because you've got to put your objective markers down. You don't actually ever physically mark them. What you do instead is you put all of the objectives on the board at the same time, and then you just move them in, if that makes sense. This is quite annoying physically to play, but mechanically it's really fun and engaging. You start with 4 objectives at the sides, then on Battle Round 2 they move into the kind of center quarter, and then at the beginning of Battle Round 4 they move into the middle. And quite nicely, this happens after whoever decides to take the first turn, take the first turn of that turn goes, which is a nice kind of like place for it to happen. And then you've got scoring for holding each one of the objectives. If you are the underdog, though, again, if you're down on victory points, then at the end of the turn, the underdog can pick one objective, inflict D3 mortal damage on that unit, contesting that objective roll separately for each unit. And each player scores victory points like that. And it's 4 for the battle tactics as well. So it's a nice, really nice one. I really like that. I think that was fun. In my personal opinion. Now, this is a massive positive, which I adore. And again, great for new people, great for existing players and everyone else. We have got keywords for terrain, which is the best. When you go to an event or even when you play games at home, having terrain organized in a map is wicked. I've always done it for Age of Sigmar. They're on thehonestwargamer.com if you're playing 3rd edition now. You can go download them. They're all free. But Games Workshop providing them already is wonderful. And we know what the types of terrain are: area terrain, hills and storm vaults, and that provides cover. Then we have obstacles, we have cover, and we have this new keyword unstable. That probably is going to be impassable, so you probably won't be able to end a model's movement on top of a piece of terrain or in a piece of terrain. This is really good because this means that you can sculpt, paint, hobby the best pieces of terrain that you want for that piece, knowing that no model's ever going to you're not going to try and balance an Archeon at an angle or something on it. So this is fantastic, and I'm really in love with that keyword and hope that that's what it means, which is super, super cool. We did it. Yeah, shout out to Charlie in the chat who helped me with that pack. High five. It was super nice. This is literally me, Charlie, and a couple of other event organizers around the world. Shout out to Tom Medgens. Shout out from Tom over in the USA. This is a bunch of people in the Age of Sigmar community coming together, effectively creating terrain keywords that have been used and adopted worldwide. So much so that Games Workshop just have had to put it in their game. So that's really exciting for us. Okay, I mean, and it's good. Then we've got obscuring terrain and what that does, which is great because you want line of sight blocking terrain, because if shooting is too good, that means you can increase how much line of sight blocking terrain you put on the board. That's really positive. And then you've got places of power, which is probably going to have some sort of like beneficial status effect around terrain, which ultimately I probably will never include in any of my packs, because you don't want an advantage to a unit from terrain, because terrain is free and a unit costs points. So if, let's say, I have something that adds +1 to an attack from a terrain feature, you don't want to give that away for free when normally I would have to bring a character that does a spell to do that. It seems silly. So it doesn't scale well. But maps being included in the core game so that everyone at home can use them is an incredibly good thing. Keywords is an incredibly good thing. Everyone should be jumped for joy about this. This is great. No one uses player place terrain. It does say in this article we can still use player place terrain. That's just someone being lazy. You use the maps and you build terrain for maps, and it's brilliant. So everyone is happy about this. This is an amazing change. I couldn't be more positive and excited about it. Super good. Finally, we got a sneak peek at what one of the season rules is going to be for this season, which is really fun. And it's called Honor Guard. This rule lets you pick one of the 3 powerful abilities to give a single Honor Guard. So this is one of 3 abilities you can give to an Honor Guard unit in your General's Regiment. Since these abilities are chosen during the deployment phase, you can use them to adapt to your opponent's roster. This is what many people have been calling for a while, and this is called this is what many people have been calling for in Age of Sigmar for a while, because it's like a sideboard mechanic. Now, some people are really pro a sideboard mechanic. I'm not that pro a sideboard mechanic. I think you should write everything on your army list before you get started. But I guess, you muster to the scene of a battle and you decide what your Honor Guard unit is doing. It thematically makes sense as much as anything. And it's a really soft sideboard, so I'm not that bothered, to be honest. But that's effectively what it is. And it gives you some nice ability to adapt as you get there, which is great. Okay, so what does Bodyguard do? You pick a friendly unit in your General's Regiment that is not your General to be the Honor Guard. You can pick a unit in reserve. You can pick a unit in reserve, which is great. If you use this ability, you cannot use any of the other Honor Guard abilities. Like we said, there's 3, this is 1. And the effect is wild. You subtract 1 from the attacks characteristic of an enemy unit's melee weapons while they're in combat with a General, if both are true. If they're wholly within 6 inches of the General and the Honor Guard did not charge this turn. And this is super good. -1 attack to the attacks characteristic is an incredibly effective debuff, which is really good. And this will scale, this will scale incredibly well when you have a large unit. So if, let's say you have an Archeon, as an example, it's already a very survivable large model. And therefore, you're going to want to put a lot of big attacks to do a lot of damage into it. Well, now I just have this Honor Guard ability, and this Honor Guard ability means that you're going to be putting 1 less attack per model into it, and it's great. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to achieve. There's a lot of skill expression there with the Honor Guard unit needing to be within 6 inches, but overall, I'm super pro it, and I think that's going to be really good for large monster models. In fact, it's starting to really shape up to feel like it's a large monster edition, because you have a lot of wounds around a single unit that's your General, and so like a Frostlord and Stonehorn. I'm pretty certain a Mega Gargant can fit inside of a Mega Gargant, because the using unit you choose to be your Honor Guard, there's no restriction on it, in my opinion. So unless the only restriction is that it needs to be in your General's Regiment. So unless you can put 1 Mega Gargant inside another Mega Gargant's regiment, then there you go. But very, very interesting. and very effective. The General's Handbook is going to be found in the launch box. It comes in cards format, featuring season rules, battle tactics, battle plans, scoring cards, and handy format. The standalone release version will contain all of this alongside the core rules, advanced rules, latest rules for endless spells, and importantly, a tournament organizer pack providing guidance for event organizers. And it's this kind of key phrase that's really made me feel like what we're going to see from Age of Sigmar 4th edition and any Age of Sigmar in the future is going to be Games Workshop really trying to help new players, new event organizers come into the space and feel like they aren't at a loss on how to play, and will be able to have good games that go right to the 5th turn. But again, we need to break that down in the future, look at the results and all those other things, but it's going to be really interesting. I'm really interested by these changes, and if I'm being 100% honest with you on YouTube, one of the things I try to do when I make these YouTube videos is I try to explain out everything with all of the knowledge I've brought from all the other game systems, but also Age of Sigmar to this as well. And I also feel like there's also my personal feelings as a gamer, which is slightly different. One of the things that I personally like from a game is I like a really high level of skill expression. I like games that are, they would insert crunchy, because for me, they do what I want, which is I have a mini that's got a narrative, and they get to express that narrative because there's a bunch of rules. When a unit only has one rule, I feel like it's not really doing a good job of expressing the narrative of what that unit does. And so I like there being a little bit more. The catch-up mechanic, for me, feels pretty interesting, because right now, my initial emotional reaction, which is not necessarily a fact, and I was a little bit unsure whether or not I would talk about it, is that I'm worried that watching someone just be able to skate by and potentially win a game because they were losing because they got outplayed doesn't feel like a positive catch-up mechanic. There are loads of really good catch-up mechanics out there. Like, specifically, I'd like to shout out Marvel Crisis Protocol. They have this really good thing where if I go in and do a bunch of damage to a character, then they get a lot of power, which is the resource that you use to battle back. That kind of makes sense, right? You take a lot of damage, then you've got all these bonus things. But I can elect not to do a lot of damage, which is, again, another strategy. In this, just because I played a little bit better and scored more points than well, not you necessarily. I mean, you might play you played better than me, and now I'm down some points. We'll do it the other way. I now just get some advantages in battle plans, get more CP. It's a bit of a problem, in my opinion. But I don't know if it is a problem. So I was a bit unsure whether or not I should speak about it. I've talked about it. I'd love to know what you think. I'm not saying, everything's terrible. I'm just kind of saying, I'm interested in that. I'd like to know what you think. Thanks for watching the video. Hope you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Bye.